growing up in Lebanon, you've seen many powers come and go. I remember my grandma said, she's like, I've seen the Ottomans come and go, I've seen the French come and go, I've seen the Arabs come and go, I've seen the Israelis come and go, and so does money. Like my family's far for, we do like 40 tons of avocados. And in order to live off of that without necessarily trading, you gotta go to the food terminal and trade it for black market dollars or Lebanese pound when the Lebanese pound was worth it. But you have to find a mean of living off of these 40 tons of avocados. And that mean is not dictated by you. That mean can change. I'm like, I want to build a pool, and one day I want to convince the municipality to use it to represent what the farmers in this village grow. And if I can replicate that with all the villages that are around there, you solved a huge problem. And that trading is solely dependent on their means of production. And they don't need anybody in the middle to validate that. Computer-related or computer-driven or computer accessibility in Lebanon in the 80s in a village close to the Israeli border in the mountains was next to none. I didn't want to do computer science. I wanted to study music. I wanted, like, since I was a kid, I've always related to music. Not just as a stardom or anything like that, but as means of expression. I was and I still find it very easy for me to express myself with an instrument. And so you grow up getting used to like war times. And so I remember having that conversation with my dad. He was like, I think you're gonna die in Beirut before you graduate. So how about you go to Belgium and I will contact the institute and that I went to and see if you get if they will take you grades and so forth, and we ended up doing that. And he was like, and the way he sold it to me, he was like, you'll be able to do more music there than here. I was like, done. Crypto to blockchain is tree to soil. Soil can grow many trees. Crypto is only one of the trees that can be grown on a blockchain. There's only one usage. Some people have profit in mind. Some others have governance in mind. Some have tokenization in mind. Some have preservation in mind. Some have, and just think about, this is one tech, is the same tech that is being deployed, used, and purposed and repurposed for all of these solution building for these problems to tackle. And those are massive, massive world uses, quote unquote, problems or needs more than a problem. It's a need. And so far, we never had such a fluid tech that can service all of them. It's still tech-centric, believe it or not. And it has to get to a point where it is no longer tech-centric, but it is usability-centric. It becomes a much easier onboarding when you don't have to mention blockchain, when you don't have to mention crypto, when you don't have to mention a wallet. These are baggage that comes inherited from an older system. If tech doesn't embetter life, eventually it will break.
Hello and welcome to episode 10 of Is This the New Internet? You've just heard from my guest this week, Roger Seydo. Roger is a systems architect turned robotics engineer, but it's his passions and life experience that motivated me to bring him onto this podcast. A love for music and a preference for tech optimism brought us together, and what followed were plenty of hours of chit-chat about crypto, life, and the differences between East and West. What marked Bitcoin's early days was the need to convince people why a money system outside government control was even needed. The two most prominent use cases put forward were Bitcoin as a refuge from central bank collapse and/or authoritarian overreach. Consider this episode a return to that earliest sense of purpose on which crypto was built. Roger shares profound insights from growing up in war-torn Lebanon, where having to rebuild after destruction became a normal part of life. We explore how this experience shaped his view of blockchain as something far beyond a speculative vehicle. As Roger puts it, this is the first technology that would render centralized systems needless, allowing villagers to maintain their own records, from land deeds to birth certificates to agricultural production. Roger's journey from Lebanon to Belgium to Canada offers a unique perspective on the intersection of culture and technology. His vision for blockchain extends to preserving cultural heritage, language, and traditions through AI, ensuring that elders' wisdom can be passed directly to future generations without the filters that have historically distorted cultural transmission. So this episode is a little different, a little bit more freeform, tying into the theme of cultural fluidity and expression that will resurface plenty of times. Whether discussing avocado farming, music as a pure expression, or how AI might transform creative workflows, Roger's perspective challenges us to look beyond Western frameworks and imagine technology as a tool for cultural preservation rather than disruption. So, a few quick announcements. Next month looks like it's going to be among the busiest I've ever had. So, this podcast will be on hiatus while I make the most of Consensus, Futurist, and the bountiful harvest of side events that will accompany the festival vibes. I'll be documenting it all though, and you can stay in the loop through my socials and my newsletter. It goes out every 2 weeks and it's a roundup of all the activities that I'm involved in, plus a few essential non-paywall media that caught my eye. Do check out my link tree for all my socials and my website and my newsletter. It's in the description of this episode. And before we get into the weeds of this conversation with Roger, I'd like to thank the minters of my previous episode with Noak Lindqvist. If you haven't had a chance to give this one a listen yet, I'd highly recommend it, irrespective of your familiarity with the tech scene. For viewers on YouTube, Minter ENS addresses are on the screen right now. Thank you for your support. And of course, the leaderboard of Minters. Those who've minted 5 or more episodes get the privilege of having their ENS names mangled by yours truly. In all seriousness though, I'm really grateful that you keep showing up and dig what I'm doing here. Here we go. Pedro Villela, Web3 Ninjas, Rudra, Crypto Basel, Wick3, Fundloop, Frenchie, AISCB, Base Students, Atomotomo, 0x Alden, and K Vinto. If you'd like to see your name on here, head on over to our pod's link and get minting. Don't forget to rate the episode if you're on Apple or Spotify. It's a massive boost for the algo and it helps us connect with more people like you. I wholeheartedly appreciate every share, like, post, retweet, you name it. Thank you for being an amazing community, and let's get into episode 10 with Roger Sader.
That's, you know what? Like, I have to say, my dad passed. When my dad was alive, his business, my dad went to he went to university in Belgium, a first generation immigrant kind of but he didn't stay in Belgium. He moved back to Lebanon, built his business in Lebanon. And I remember asking him that. I was like, well, you could have stayed in Belgium, retired, your business would have flourished. He had to rebuild his business 3 times in my life, 4 times, 3 times in kind of when I was there in Lebanon due to war. You just get annihilated, destroyed. And I remember asking him that in 95 when I was there. I was like, I know I'm not going to live here. We had a kind of quick. I asked him, like, why would you build it here? He's like, you'll understand when you get older. I was like, what do you mean? And he was like, retirement is a weird concept. It's a Western weird concept. And he was like, I can't do it. And he was like, I can't do it. He was like, I lived there in times where I was the most like at the peak of my productivity, and I saw the opportunity to become a distributor for these brands in the Middle East, and I based my business here. And to go back and retire is a foreign concept for me. And he's like, they retire there. He was like, here we just live. You know, it's one thing to kind of look at a business and go like, I'm building a business knowing that it's going to get destroyed. And when you're building down there, you're pretty much guaranteed at some point in your lifetime, you're going to have to rebuild. So you have that constant in you. And he smiled and he was like, maybe there's a benefit to that. And you go like, and that's the part where I was like, maybe I'll experience it later in life. And now that I'm in my 50s, I remember a lot of that conversation in a sense where I go like, there is a lot to say about not destruction, but rethinking and renewal. because it's seasonal, whether it is war induced or whether it is like financial or economical induced. There is, and when we were in India, so he said something. He was like, organization and accomplishment, they're odd. He was like, I kind of had to learn how to deal with Lebanese, because he had a business, he ran a business, he had employees, and he was like, I had to learn how to deal with it. But you have to learn how to position your end goal as well. And back then, is like, I did not have the experience that I have today about. The best way to describe it is liquidity. English is not my first language, so I'm going to stumble on many words.
That's cool. Take your time.
And is that liquidity? I don't know. Fluidity.
That big difference in East and West is something I want a lot of in my professional life. In my personal life, I do appreciate the fluidity that you like.
Yeah.
The
non-stiffness. That's why I think they will flourish with blockchain tech.
Okay.
Because it's the first tech that is not stiff.
Do tell. Because in my mind, we're making forever tech, right? We're making tamper-proof records.
Maybe.
So how do we add flexibility to this from your perspective?
The flexibility of it is that you could use the same tech for financial trading, for example, if you want to look at it that way. But it's the same tech that can use to manage a community. It's the first tech that would allow attribution of value to an asset without the stiffness of a centralized banking system. Like, let's unpack this. Let's unstack it. So usually, let's say, whether you live in a city or whether you live in a village, at some point you will need means of trade and transaction. Like, growing up in Lebanon, I had like 6 years where we didn't have electricity. We were in a zone where the electrical grid was gone. You either had motors and power that was like scarce, so we didn't have electricity, and there was no access to banking. There was the village functioned. It still functioned. There was access to certain money here and there for things that you needed money for, and most of these things that you needed money for were imported. But anything that was local, there was means of getting around it, services rendered or trading or whatever it is. That's obviously wouldn't be the case in a city, or like in Beirut or anything like that. But I lived period of my life where you can function without it. When I first encountered, or when I first wrapped my head around blockchain, that's the first thing that dawned to me. I'm like, it's the first technology that would render centralized system needless. So if you were to take a blockchain application and install it or use it to keep family trees, to keep land deeds, to keep birth certificates, to keep anything within a village, you actually no longer need centralized governance in order to verify that. That is verifiable, and it's actually brings in a lot of economical value. If you think of centralized entity, they need a lot of contribution from those who are governing in order for them to, you need buildings, you need employees, you need to just think about all that infrastructure that comes with it. It renders it useless. And the most interesting part about it, there's no fight. I mean, the only way for a centralized system to get rid of the other one is to stop the internet, stop electricity and satellites. I can't see any other means of being able to really, truly block people from accessing it. I think it was like 2020, the Lebanese pound collapsed. Everything collapsed. And so helping family back home through banks was pretty much the Canadian central bank lost trust in the Lebanese central bank. So even if you go to the bank and say, I want to wire money to Lebanon, first thing they told me back then is like, there was no trust system anymore between them. So we can't guarantee that they're going to get it. And if they get it, we can guarantee that your family or your brother or sister that you're sending it to, they'll be able to retrieve it because it will be in a bank. And later on, they did like fresh. This is so kind of fucked up when you go like it's a banking system in a country have two classification for dollars: fresh dollars and old dollars, and which just the thought of that will kind of make you sick to the stomach. And so fresh dollars is dollars that you just transacted with now. Old dollars are dollars that you had in the past, and we kind of politicians have stole them, and now I know you can see them, but you can't access them at that point.
Wait, so that means is this like a distinction between cash and digital dollars?
No, both of them are in your bank, but if basically you've deposited dollars, like a few years ago, and you deposited dollars today, you have fresh dollars of the one that you deposited. You can withdraw, but the old dollars that have been there for a long time, you can't really withdraw them at this point.
So or even at this point right now?
Yes. And even if you would want to withdraw them, they have so the Lebanese pound was over 100,000 Lebanese pound for $1. And if you're going to withdraw them, they're like, we'll give you 1,500. And you go like, what the fuck? and that's normal thing. That is the kind of so my brother Adam is one that say he was like, oh, avocado is like digital gold, and just take that and you go like, and by the way, like when that collapse happened, you kind of realize that gold has value when you have actual currency. If you don't have currency, you are at the mercy of who you're trading with. If they want to trade your gold for cows or for goats or for avocado, and you have to feed your family, you are faced with that decision of trading that.
And the exchange rate is on a per transaction basis.
Yes, and you, again, you're at the mercy of who you're trading with. So, which puts to kind of a question, like questioning what the West, and even there were gold holders. That I read somewhere in an article that one of the highest suicide rate in the countries, beside those who couldn't feed their families anymore, and banks and governments locked up all their money, was gold holders, because those who had gold through bullions couldn't access them anymore, and those who actually hoarded physical gold, like whether it's in jewelry or they had to trade them and to eat. And so, which gives you kind of a different perspective on the whole idea of gold as a backing or reserve or like for that. And so all of a sudden you have assets that grow on trees. But until blockchain tech, you had no means with fluidity to value those assets. You always needed a central entity to value them. But a village on their own that grow a unique kind of olives that have very unique kind of, like whether avocados or very fertile soil, or can usually in the past will have a higher price for what they do, and they can have a brand name, and all that is tied into a central entity that gave them a value for that asset that they have grown. And certain chains that wasn't, I mean, that wouldn't be applicable, for example, for Bitcoin, but they can be very well applicable to like Ethereum or Cardano or Polkadot, or where you can attribute value to an asset. It's no longer an equation of this coffee is delicious, it's $10. That coffee is not as delicious, $7. But again, it brings now a value where you go like, in this village, a doctor can go like, I'll pay you 3 avocados for a visit. Your avocados are amazing. They're organic, this and that. I know it's back to bargaining and it's back to trading, but you've taken the weight of central need for valuation and you actually have distributed. And governance becomes representative from the ground up rather than the up down. which kind of brings it back to the nature of who we are. We are centralized and decentralized at the same time. Our heart beats, the muscles of the heart and our, like the cells of the heart are very different than the cells of your kidney and the cells of your brain. And it's true, yeah, we need the brain for as a quote unquote central organizer, if you want to say. But there is sense of autonomies to certain parts of our bodies, and it's not an encompassing one up down system. And this is the first time that we actually have technological innovations that would render society in a similar way. And so from that perspective, you go like that fluidity is very hard to fight or suppress, or which brings it back again to, so I'm gonna jump a lot between like topics and tech and life, because if tech doesn't embetter life, eventually it'll break. My first 2 jobs when I moved to Canada is like out of whim. From Belgium, I went I did computer science in Brussels, and both my first 2 jobs in Canada were porting. I was like in a niche at the time that I fell into. I moved to Montreal from Brussels. I didn't speak English, not well, and I basically did migratory system from mainframe to distributed, mainly Linux networks. So and so when I'm a company that moved me to Toronto, I did that for like an LIS, like laboratory information system, like healthcare, and basically it became my niche, AS400 and DB2s, mainframes into Linuxes and like distribute like a smaller setup. And then after that, I did it for Unilever, and it was for cold storages, and it was like the same thing. And so that experience of migration was always from a big stiff into malleable fluid, because yes, there is means of management for big stiff that were back then coming out of, like, just think of mainframes and when they became like widely used and why they were widely used, and the corporations that mainly used them and how they're structured. It mimicked their structure, and it kind of made sense for them back then. But then when these quote unquote distributed in a sense where it's distributed within that organization, it actually brought a lot of value. And the lot of value came not just because like Linux system management and that aspect of it, but mainly because we're taking a big block and now we have these little blocks. If and when they will break, that will be fixed, and not the entire big machine that will need to be tackled.
What motivated you to study what you did, and then what motivated you to switch it up?
I didn't want to do computer science. I want to study music. I want to, like, since I was a kid, I've always related to music, not just as a like stardom or anything like that, but as means of expression. And I still find it very easy for me to express myself with an instrument. And I was fascinated how you could replace an entire conversation with one note. When I did guitar when I was a kid, I remember the teacher, like a guitar teacher. I'm like sitting, I'm learning my scale, and he came in, there was like a group of us, and he was like, we're gonna do like a quiz today, and we were like, oh my god, I know my scale. I was like so excited. I was like, I know my major minors. I like you name it. I know how to play them, and I know my fingering. And he was like, you can only play one note, and we were like, what the fuck? One note. And he's like, yeah, one note, and I want that note to be what the topic is. We're like, what topic? And he was like, well, who wants to go first? And I was like, fuck, I'm not going first. My neighbor, at the time, he kind of went for it. And I remember him saying, he goes, love. And there was this sense of, like, there was this big thing of like, oh my God, but it came, I was like, oh, I was worried about like scales, and I was like, fuck, I can do that. Yeah, no problem. And I was able to express myself using an instrument with ease. So I wanted to do music. And my dad at the time, he was like, I know you're into music and you're into this modern, like Western kind of thing. And he was like, who are your top musicians? I remember having that conversation with him, and he went and came back after a few days, and he was like, I dug up your favorite musicians, and he was like, they all died either hungry or can't afford medication. And I was like, whoa, I didn't look at it from that perspective. And he was like, tell you what, how about you do everything that you want, like in kind of eventually with music, but as kind of respect to an elder, to your dad, because I worry about your future. Computers, I think. And so like that conversation happened in the 80s. And he was like, I think I remember he got me not long before that. My first computer was like a C64, Commodore 64. And he was like, I think those things, and I learned BASIC just because I wanted to do a game. And he was like, I think they're gonna be everywhere. He's like, those computers are gonna be everywhere. And you seem to like kind of you know, using them. So do computer science, and then after that you can do whatever the fuck you want. And he's like, at least you'll have something to fall onto.
And this was all in Lebanon?
That was in Lebanon, yeah.
So, okay, so this is really cool to me because
I only have my own experience of growing up in India in the 90s. What was it like, the early days of computers in a non-Western country? Like
none. Literally gaming. Like literally you have like C64 and you have cassettes and you got connected to it. I remember like, oh my God, Who Dares Wins was the first game that I got addicted to, hooked to. That was my early dealing with addiction, digital addiction. When I got older, where I realized, oh my God, this is where my digital addiction started back then. And it was like mainly, I was blown away by the first game where you have a thing that you shoot to the screen.
Oh, the Duck Hunt game.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, how did it know that it's like, it blew my mind. And when I realized that like what it based on and why is it connected and how it actually captured and detected is.
But actually learning about it blew my mind again. Right? Because as a kid, I was like, okay, this is crazy. How does this work? Yes. And then as an adult, I was like, oh my God, this only works because of the CRT TVs.
Yeah, I know, it's crazy. And so that was like by no means, it was the accessibility and the exposure to computers and devices that we have today. It was, and we could only play it when there's electricity or we have like fuel to turn the motor on, like the generator on and something like that. But by no means it was like similar to here.
Okay, or so computer stores, what was that vibe?
There was none.
What about the secondhand computer parts shops and all that stuff?
No.
So how?
Not at least not in the area where I was living. In Beirut, obviously, and if you broke your computer, you just have to wait until you can make it, if you can make it to Beirut. When I finished high school and it was university time, I was in the University of Beirut, and I had to move from the village to my grandma and my aunts and uncle in Beirut, and back then it was before the peace treaties, and it was close to red lines, and so you grow up getting used to like war times. And so I'm having that conversation with my dad. He was like, I think you're gonna die in Beirut before you graduate, so how about you go to Belgium, and I will contact the institute and that I went to and see if you get if they would take your grades and so forth. And we ended up doing that. And he was like, and the way he sold it to me, he was like, you'll be able to do more music there than here. I was like, done. And I loved Belgium. I love Belgium. I loved Brussels. I love and that's the first thing I did when I moved to Belgium. Other than like find a band, and it was my first band to play with, and so yeah, like the computer related or computer driven or computer accessibility in Lebanon in the 80s in a village close to the Israeli border in the mountains was next to none.
That's fascinating because I felt in India, we were quite privileged with, and especially when I grew up and when I started getting more involved with computer stuff, like computers are everywhere. This very strong culture that I think you might have some experience with as well is making do with what you've got
Yeah.
in an area to optimize it the best you can.
Yeah.
You can ask your folks, can you please get me this new thing? And you kind of use that upgrade to sort of jerry rig together what you can.
Yep.
So could you tell me a little bit about this? Like, what was that like when you were in Lebanon? Then how did going to Belgium change your outlook on
Oh
that?
my God, it was massive. There was 2 events in Lebanon that I think I hope that I will remember them till I lose my brains. One is when I broke a string and there's no strings for the guitar, not in the area where I was. And the second one was so the games back then were on cassette. And the cassette had like a cable that you link it to the Commodore, like C64, and like to play the game. So that's the only means of playing the game. So if you want a new game, you need a new cassette kind of that you buy the game with. And I wanted a game, and I had to wait for months and months for a cousin that was coming from Beirut up there to bring me guitar strings and game. But during that, I realized that if I put that, I was always I was at the beginning terrified of putting the game tape into the cassette player because I was like, and that's how I think I ended up ruining that cassette. But the first time I put it, it blew my mind of that it was musical, like in a sense, not musical, but it was tonal. And so when I put the cassette and played it on thing, it was that like it's you know how if you've experienced early internet through dial-up and you hear the and kind of it had like that same odd. And I remember putting it on and listening to it, trying to identify or trying to get patterns of what the tonal representation of a video game would be. And I think that's how I kind of messed up that first tape. But you just had to make, like you said, you had to. I remember stripping cable wires to get a cable that would fit to my guitar string that broke, not knowing that they will not steal and they will not withstand the tension. I always end up breaking it. And it never held tune either. But you got to make do with what you got.
So in Belgium, you kind of got a start in the computer science field.
Mm-hmm.
That was, you say, the first time that you were in a place where there was more cutting edge, availability of cutting edge technology. Yeah. So how was that? How was the transition from the DIY life, exploring for yourself, to the educational institution? What was the learning curve like? Was there a learning curve?
There was definitely a learning curve, but it wasn't as techy in a sense. I had good educational standing, so there wasn't, if anything, there was a massive boredom because of that lack of fluidity. I had points where like yourself, I did kind of I didn't think of it as a benefit or as a positive arsenal in your life. I thought about it the other way around. Fuck, you can't rely on anybody in a sense to be on time or to do something, or you never know. But then when I moved to Brussels, the first thing that was the major difference is the stiffness of life, because you do things all the time at the same time. And in both places, you have to be on time for your class. But I find there was more forgiveness in one than there is in the other. And that is one. The other part is that, so at the beginning, yeah, there was like, it wasn't techie. It wasn't the amount of tech. It wasn't that part actually was exciting in a sense. But I'm like, it's boring here. That's my first thing. I was like, fuck, they got no bombing. You don't have to run away from anything. Like, and I remember once there was a power off. And that was so exciting for Israel. I lived a lot of power offs in my childhood. And so it was a huge deal. The government almost fell in Belgium because of that power off that happened. And I remember reading about it. I was like, fuck, if the government is going to fall because of power off, there should never be a government in Lebanon in the first place. But my roommates at the time, they were like, fuck, you know what to do. And they were like kind of they didn't know what to do in the power. They were just looking around And I was like, you just find a candle, light a candle, and sit and have a conversation. And that's when I realized, like, I didn't have a lot of TV in my growing up. You know, you bicker with your family or your brother and your sister, and there was a lot more social interactions. Then I think that was the boredom part, kind of and I didn't have a TV in Belgium either. So if you don't have a TV and you go like, oh my God, so I had to find a band. I had to find. I was looking forward to playing a band, and so that was the first thing after kind of getting used to the schooling side or to attendance and all that is like the next thing is like when you explore a city. I did the same thing in Brussels that I did in Toronto and in Montreal, which is explore the city from the art scene. And Brussels is a very diverse city. It comes like music wise, same as Montreal, same as in Toronto. So I explored it from that perspective, and that took away that all of a sudden the city became musically fluid. And after I graduated, I worked for a bank for a few months, for 6 months. I was like, fuck, I gotta leave. I can't do this. And I remember going back to Lebanon. I was like, fuck, I can't do this either. And yeah, I stumbled. Like I actually wasn't planning to move to Canada. The band I was playing with broke up, and our rehearsal space every day. Every time I walked to the rehearsal space, I walked in front of Quebec consulate, and one day after the band broke up, I was looking for another band. I was sitting and reading a paper looking for another band, and I saw this advertising that said, "We will help you immigrate to United States, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and South Africa." And when I was reading, I was like, I didn't want to stay in Europe. I was like kind of I don't know, Lebanese. I think it's Lebanese blood. You want kind of moving is I don't know. We have the genes for moving, I guess. And I knew I didn't want to live in Lebanon. And I was like, but I didn't speak English well. And I was like, any of these places would be a detriment so I was like, fuck, they speak English. I mean, they speak French in Canada. And I walk in front of that consulate. And I remember my first time going to the consulate, that's the first thing I asked. The guy was just looking. I was like, "Well, how do you do to immigrate to Canada?" And he just tilted his head, looked at me like, "They don't get a lot of Belgians that want to immigrate to Canada." And he was like, "Why Canada?" I was like, "Well, I just graduated in IT. I don't want to live here." And he's like, "What do you know about Canada?" I was like, and that was the moment I was like, I know that Bryan Adams and David Suzuki are Canadians and not Americans. And he laughed. And I was like, I want to learn English. And it's true, I wanted to learn more English. And I was like, it's a bilingual country and I speak French. And I just graduated. And so I ended up moving to Montreal. He just, I remember him. He looked at me, he gave me a bunch of books. He's like, go read this book so you know more about Canada rather than just Bryan Adams. And yeah, I have cousins that moved here and went through hell to get here. I had like very, very, very easy, comparatively speaking, to other Lebanese that moved to Canada from different places. I just lucked out in that sense where, it was through, you right time at the right place in a sense, and band breakup.
Yeah.
It wasn't IT whatsoever. But when in Montreal, the company, when I showed up in Montreal, so the company was like, migrating, basically AS400s, DB2s to the Linux system. I was like, I can do that. I was like, fuck, IBM was, I think, like, I don't know if they were backing at the time. Like we wrote quite a bit on AS400, so I was very comfortable with it. And so that was my first gig. And I came to Toronto to visit a cousin that I haven't seen in like years and years and years and years. I remember when I was a kid. And I came to visit him in Toronto, and he was like, "You should move to Toronto. You'll get paid more." I was like, "English," and he was like, "I was like, I want to learn English." And I remember him looking at in a paper. He was like, "Look," and he showed me. He's like, "They want somebody bilingual." I was like, "You're missing the point. I'm bilingual Lebanese and French. I'm not bilingual English, and my English is very rusty." And he's like, "Look at this," and I looked at it, and it was a company that was looking for, like migration from AS400s. I was like, living in Montreal for about a year is brutal, especially if you're not aware of the winter. especially if you've never lived going outside in February and having your nasals freeze. And I had, like, I lived in Saint Laurent area, worked in the area too, so I mainly walked. And winter in Montreal is brutal comparatively speaking to Toronto. And so he goes, he was like, call them. And I'm like, I don't even know how to have the conversation in English. And so lucky enough, the guy spoke broken French. And my cousin at the time, I'm like on the spot, he drove me. He was like, the guy wants to interview. He wants to see you now. I was like, I'm in tank top. He's like, he doesn't care. Just, I said, what do you get to know? Let's go and see. Let's go. And so I went and sat with the guy and explained to him what I was doing at the time in Montreal. And the communication was hard. And I was like, just put behind a computer. And he was showing me what they're doing. I was like, oh yeah, I totally know what you're doing. And he was like, how would you do like this aspect of it? I was like, oh, you need, GDBC. You need these components. He's like, you know how to connect them, build them? And I was like, yeah, I showed it to him. I remember him. He was like, I'll be right back. And he came back with a contract. And he was like, here's a contract. I'll move you. And I need a French speaker. I need somebody that can, and so I remember him moving me. I lived in Markham for a very, very short period of time. I was like, fuck, get you out of here. And I moved down in Parkdale. And so I was like, but I've been living there since. And yeah, that's how I ended up in Canada from Belgium, from Brussels.
That's great. That's amazing. And I think the way, you've settled in Toronto with multiple, axes of interest, right? You got your professional life, you got your music and art life. And I think that's kind of how I want to navigate the city as well. As someone who's been here now less than a year, I found a lot of joy through the crypto circles and through the music circles. And you live in both those circles. So I think that's...
I'm like the opposite than your experience in a sense where if it wasn't for Lawrence Ley, I probably wouldn't have came out to any of the crypto, I remember I met, what was the name of the fella that was running the group before Lawrence? I remember going to the summit and I was like, my interest in blockchain wasn't financial. So most of what they did was like mainly around trading. I was like, I'm not that interested in that aspect of it. And so Lawrence took over and Lawrence was super nice. He was like and the fact that he was a professor made me feel comfortable. I was like, a professor would have very different interest in a technology than a trader. So I remember going to the first one after interacting with Lawrence and realizing I felt comfortable in a sense, like I'm not going with to hook up with a bunch of crypto bros that are interested in trading or price perspective and at the time I just started learning about the system itself, how to run, how to build, how to participate, how to build a server. I was like comfortable building like Linux services, administrating Linux services, servers. I mean, and so I was interested from that side. And Lawrence made it very comfortable. So I kind of start going out because of that. There was a group of techies, but not necessarily only price driven or trading driven around the tech. I love the Bitcoin Bay Cardano meetup that we go to because it has that diversity.
Yeah, and I think the value of these smaller meetups that we tend to have as well, right? You can get into these details. There isn't a stage with the presentation happening that we need to be heard over.
Yeah.
It's very much, let's get into these details. And yeah, sorry, I didn't introduce this episode, but this is literally the normal kind of conversation that Roger and I have.
Yes.
You might think that this is a podcast recording, but not particularly, because we meet like every other week and we kind of just go off on tangents like this. So this isn't like special.
This is the first time that we do it formally.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, and I didn't even introduce you.
It's okay.
Because we would just get straight into it. So, hello, welcome to Is This the New Internet with a fantastically special guest who we've already heard a fair amount from. His name is Roger Sader from Lebanon, but now he's a bona fide Canadian, having been here he's part of the furniture over here.
I'm actually more Canadian. I've lived more longer in Canada than in Lebanon.
Exactly.
And I can say I'm proudly. I'll tell you a little tiny story. I'm sorry, you just popped it in me. When I was visiting, and my wife is of Italian background, and so when we visited in Lebanon, my daughter said in front of my mom, she said, "I'm Lebanese, Canadian, and Italian. I'm half Lebanese and half Italian," or something like that is the way she said it. And my mom, she goes like, "Did your dad put that idea in your head?" And she remembered my mom calling me, and she said it to my daughter in front of me. She was like, "You're half nothing. You're fully Canadian. You're fully Lebanese, and you're fully Italian. Half is something that is not complete. You are complete." And so when somebody says like, "Are you half Canadian, half Lebanese?" I was like, I now adopt my mom's approach to it. I was like, I am fully Canadian. I'm fully Lebanese. I'm fully human for now.
That's cool. That's cool. So yeah, so Roger is in the Cardano group with me, and that's where we first met. And then I just kept seeing him everywhere I went because we tend to have a very similar outlook on crypto being more than just a speculative vehicle, just as what you've heard from right now. Like we met with Cardano where we spoke about governance. We meet at Green Pill where we talk about regenerative finance, and not just the financial aspect of this, right? Because decentralization of trust goes beyond money. It's organizations, it's communities. And you mentioned your experience in Lebanon during very turbulent times and how it was local communities and that solidarity of the community that kind of got you through that. You've seen some parts of this in crypto. From your experience of actually having to build a solidarity network from the ground up, do you think that there's anything that we in crypto and tech and decentralized governance can learn from your lived experience?
Good question. I don't think it's the technology that get us together.
Okay.
Yes, it's a mean. It's an excuse. It's a mean. But the tech is a conduit to again. It's the first tech that can actually bring expression into the equation, and I think that's why we gravitate towards it. Is that again? It's a technological innovation that can adapt to a community, regardless of how the community is going to use it. It has that fluidity. It has that ease of accessibility. And dependent on which network it is, it has that very, very low cost barrier to participate in. And those are what I find make people like gather or make people get around it. Some people have profit in mind. Some others have governance in mind. Some have tokenization in mind. Some have preservation in mind. Some have, and just think about, this is one tech, is the same tech that is being deployed, used, and purposed and repurposed for all of these solution building for these problems to tackle. And those are massive, massive world uses, quote unquote, problems or needs more than a problem. It's a need. And so far, we never had such a fluid tech that can service all of them.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's why I'm here. I love how it's an open playground. If you're a developer, you have all the tools you need to participate in this playground and build something that people can come, use, benefit from. So, and I think your specific niche in this is really cool in that regard, because your involvement in this space, you're a builder, you're a developer, you have a way of seeing the technical aspects of it, but you're involved in it beyond that. In Cardano, it's a proof of stake blockchain. And what that means is you keep your funds in a wallet and you keep them sort of stationary, and they form like a star chart for the rest of the network to understand where the money is flowing. And you get rewarded for being a participant by staking your tokens. You are a level above that. You're not just someone who's staking, you're a stake pool operator. So that means we can delegate our tokens to you, and collectively we help manage, secure this network and make it function. So could you tell us a little bit about this role you find yourself in? First, can you tell us what it's about, and how does one get involved, and who should get involved, really?
Yeah. Wow. Let's unstack that. I like unstacking stuff.
Yeah.
In order for a network, let's go actually to an even higher level network, right? This tech is their unique networks, and unique in a sense where the network functions on a non-central approach. For the network, for these networks to be reliable and secure, you have like the proof of work, proof of stake. Are you the most powerful computer on this network? And you can hash the next block, or do you have enough stake and people trust you to hash the next block? So from an accessibility perspective, your access to power is most 90% driven, or 99% for that matter, driven through acquiring gear that you purchase on a commercial level. And the higher, so started with CPUs and then moved on to like GPUs and so forth, until there is a unique set of skills and less ubiquitous, if you want to say, versus CPUs or GPUs in that sense. So ASIC,
like purpose-driven machines.
Purpose-driven machine, yeah. Purpose-driven machine that does one thing really, really, really well, rather than a generalized computational unit that does many things. So this was, unless you became part of that small, you can either buy an ASIC machine, or good luck if you want to go and start programming FPGA to be able to have enough hashing power to be relevant on that grid. On the other hand, staking driven mechanism is based on your first of is accessibility, or it's the tech that is needed in order to participate in it is really accessible to everybody. Like on the Cardano, you just need a 4-core, 24 gigs of RAM and like 500 gigs, and you can run a relay. Very, very accessible today. I assembled my first servers from recycling. The only thing that I bought was memory and SSD. The units itself, I found them, and I worked at a building that had recycling, electronics recycling, and I picked up my first machines from there. So accessibility-wise, it's very accessible. Now comes to the second layer, and that's the layer that I'm really interested in, which is, you can call it tokens, but it's way beyond that. So my first interest in participating in the network is related back to my upbringing, or to my early life, like village life. When I built my first server as a relay on testnet, is when I realized, oh my God, I know we are using tokens, and I know we can create tokens and trade them and so forth. And they do have a value depending on how many people are trading them. But the first thing that jumped to my mind, I'm like, those tokens can be more than just digital. They can be a representation of a real asset. And all of a sudden, I start relating blockchain to farming. Crypto to blockchain is tree to soil. Soil can grow many trees. Crypto is only one of the trees that can be grown on a blockchain. Is only one usage, is only one purpose. You give a purpose for that usage, which is tokenized And that token can be or can have a value dependent on how many people, whether it's a shit token or a reliable or representative token of some, it's only valuable for those who trade it. So growing up in Lebanon, you've seen many powers come and go. I remember my grandma said, she's like, I've seen the Ottomans come and go. I've seen the French come and go. I've seen the Arabs come and go. I've seen the Israelis come and go. They are used to that. Maybe fluidity or invasions or however you want to call it. And so does money. In my life, we had to flee the area that we were in. We're refugees in a different zone in Lebanon. You have no access to banks. So right away, you reformat your life to being able to live without actually being able to access that central entity. So when I got introduced to blockchain, I have left IT. So I worked in IT until like in the 2000s. I had like this shift in my brain. I'm like, I no longer want to trade my time for money. I want to trade my knowledge for an asset. And I found working in music production gave me that. If you think of music as an asset, you can create an asset. If music is an expression and you're able to collaborate with others and write music, make music, produce music, and use it for multiple purposes, it can become, for a period of time, a passive generating of income. So if you have a piece of music that's playing on a commercial or on like broadcast, it's an asset that's making an income. When after working in IT for a while, I was like, I don't see value in trading time for money, because both of them, like one is really valuable, which is your time, and the other one, it can disappear at any time, which is money. And I've lived times where money is gone. So I switched to that. But I kept in touch with a colleague, multiple colleagues, actually. I kept in touch with them because we still kind of hang out, even after we haven't worked together. He called me up and he was like, a usual kind of a hang, playing pool. I was like, yeah, we went and hung out. And he was like, I was like, what are you up to these days? We're talking. He was like, I love living vicariously through you. And we're playing in bands, working in music, and which I know what we're doing. I was like, what are you doing? He's like, I'm working with this on this contract, and it's this tech called blockchain. He was like, you'd like it because you worked in migratory system before that. I was like, tell me about it. And then he explained it to me, and I was like, this is actually fascinating. I'm gonna read about it. He was doing a contract for Ethereum at the time. And he was like, here, try it out. I remember installing like my ETH wallet, MetaMask, and transacting with it. And it was the first time where like my aha moment is realizing tokenization. When his first explanation was Bitcoin, and I wasn't impressed in a sense where I'm like, it's still a store of value. You know, it's only when I discovered Ethereum where I was like, holy shit, we can actually represent avocados now. Now, this is a very new layer. This is not a Bitcoin. This is way more. It has a very, very different usage than store of value. And so that was like my aha moment where I'm like, oh my God, somebody could start representing digitally world assets in it. And the other aha moment came when I was like, I could finally even though I worked in IT for a while and didn't like it, there was a geek in me that I love systems. I got fascinated with all the flavors of Linux distros that I've used with time, and how if a very kernel can have so many layers around it that it can become something completely different depending on the flavor that you need and so forth. And then I realized the Ethereum approach was not as accessible, if you want to say, in terms of gear, but solely gear. I'm not talking about anything else. But I loved the ethos of it. I loved the distributed aspect of it. I love that anybody can participate in it if they can get the gear. And so I was chatting with him about it, and he was just finishing his contract, and he was like, "You got to watch this." And I remember hanging out with him and watching Charles's infamous whiteboard, finishing that thing, and I'm going like, holy fuck. And I was like, what the fuck is this? I was like, is this not Ethereum? He was like, no, he's no longer CEO. And I remember digging into Cardano, and that's when my aha moment came. is when I realized the ease of accessibility. I was like, holy shit, I can build the shit that I have right now. I don't need a GPU. I don't need, like, literally, I don't need anything at that point. So my interest was not, and I was like, the first thing that came to my mind, I was like, oh my God, like my family's far for it. We do like 40 tons of avocados. And in order to live off of that without necessarily trading, you got to go to the food terminal and trade it for black market dollars or Lebanese pound when the Lebanese pound was worth it. But you have to find a mean of living off of these 40 tons of avocados. And that mean is not dictated by you. That mean can change if you go by, again, back down there. So the first thing that came to my mind wasn't attracting enough people to delegate to the pool. I'm like, I want to build a pool, and one day I want to convince the municipality to use it to represent what the farmers in this village grow. And if I can replicate that with all the villages that are around there, you solved a huge problem. And that trading is solely dependent on their means of production. And they don't need anybody in the middle to validate that. We live in an environment, in a society where we yet have to, in West, in Canada, we have to question the functioning of our governance. Like, do you remember during COVID when there was a long delays to get your passports? And I remember friends freaking out, not being able to get their passports within 2 weeks. And I remember my brother telling me he waited God knows how many months to get his kid's birth certificate because the governance in Lebanon collapsed. And then comes the next aha moment, which is like, you actually don't need them. You can, between, at the time, like between like Atala Prism, and now I'm hoping like on the Cardano ecosystem that midnight, you can actually have a duality of a municipality can run and have zero knowledge proof if some, like for private information, birth certificate, land deeds, and so forth. But at the same time, transparency about voting, transparency about how is the contribution to the village being spent. There is no murky waters, and there's nobody that you need to go and ask. That's the other part too, is like, you know, like in Canada, we have freedom of information. Have you ever tried to get any of a freedom of information?
Not yet.
Again, you have this asking, but imagine a system where information is there and your accessibility in it is not, there's no lawyer needed in the middle. There's no central entity needed in the middle. And the transparency about governance and contribution within governance. I don't like the word tax. I love the concept of contribution. In our society, we should feel proud to contribute into embettering where we live. We should not feel heavy-weighted, and we should feel odd about, quote-unquote, the tax man, because we should feel that we contribute into this embetterment of this rather than there's a taxman following me. So all of a sudden, there was a new mean of usage of this tech for a village. And so when you move back into from where we are now, or where we live here, and we're having that conversation, back to my initial aha moments of it was not for a Western. And I still think, I'm like, it's going to have a very, very different purpose used. I can only speak about Lebanon in that sense, and village kind of life in Lebanon. It will be way more valuable to them and way more repurposed for their needs than it would be for trading commodities. Like here, where when I read that, I'm not sure if it's in, I think India and China, Russia and China have classified tokenized assets as property, not security and not a commodity, but as a property. And so when we think about the West, and we are still debating whether this is, and I love how, like in the States, they're like, it's a strategic reserve. I was like, for fucking what? I'll skip that topic. But where you go, when you have an innovation that can make your governance from ground up, from village up, from family up. Just think of inheritance, think of family trees, think of land deeds, think of birth certificates, think of anything that would take the most seed-like of a community, and it can sprout with it. And how well it would adapt. It's a very valuable tech for self-governance, for self-preservation of whether it is wealth or whether it is cultural, for that matter. When I first built this staking pool, or when I built those servers, my thing is like, how can I make this so easy that a village can use it? So if you think about it from, nobody in a village is gonna go like, I'm gonna build a staking pool. But a lot of them would be very interested in going like, here's a system that you could use that can validate not just your birth certificates and land deeds and so forth, but your assets in terms of production means, your crops. That is a very different look at it than trading. And that's why I was hesitant in the beginning. Like I remember the first in Toronto, I think it was 19, the summit, and I was kind of it was all about value-driven tokenomics and not usage. And I realized it's because out west they haven't had the need yet. They haven't had the. I think COVID days was the first time where that was questioned. But until then, until COVID, even that was well orchestrated to keep the lid on. We never had a change of monetary or a change of governance or like out west, at least in Canada in that sense. So like, yeah, my original interest in it was it's actually a tech that can be used from the grounds up rather than up down to manage, represent, and govern a community. And the great part about it is there are contributors. And that's where like I kind of really value Cardano in that sense versus other networks. That is, its strength and its weakness are so tied. So the strength of the network is that distributed network, non-centralized network, and its weakness it's that is no longer have the single, like this is the CEO lead, this is the, you know what I mean? It's like that group of leaders that would lead it. Anybody can participate in it, and that can be exploited. I mean, not malicious, but that can slow down decision making. That opens the door to a lot of scenarios, is like what I say. But it's very accessible, and so as a stake pool, you go. Imagine that is used to govern a country now. All of a sudden, from a village mentality, you go like, wow, I can equally contribute into the governance of a country just as a city could. And we never had that historically. We never had equal representation in a sense where small village will have a smaller stake pool than big village. But the interest and I mean the separating aspect in there is they're not competing. You're no longer, if you think of proof of work, you're competing to hash the next block. With proof of stake, when you are using it for governance, you're no longer competing for the next block. So if a municipality or a community has X amount in their treasury and they use that to back their staking pool so they can manage, issue, and so forth certificates that they know they have full control over it. They don't worry about the central government shutting down. They can no longer figure out like who owns what and who was born when and so forth. That's mammoth amount of value that is controlled by the municipality itself. It's no longer a race to hash the next block. It's now contribution to secure and to maintain not just infrastructure, but cultural values and cultural is beyond assets. It becomes your digital representation truly of your real life assets and values that you have.
Nice. So how would this system of,
The avocado-based system, for example. How would that work in terms of the moving parts?
So who are the parties involved, and how does an avocado farmer in your neighborhood or in your area, how do they get onboarded to a platform like this?
Yeah, this is where I'm at. I'm not there yet. The easiest one is the carrot dangling, which is you'll be able to access utilities and needs that you without needing necessarily the dollar. But before you get there, the hardest part is the onboarding part. The hardest part is to able to convince a municipality to start using it, and for the municipality, or you need many municipalities to have loud enough voice to be able to convey the next governing body to accept it. It's going to take a much more sinister event to get there, because then the bodies that govern the systems will have no choice. Like if that was to be ready when the collapse happened a few years back, and say, here's a replacement, it would have worked a lot easier than it is now. And the onboarding, the tooling, it still needs a lot of work. The onboarding aspect still needs a lot of work. It's still tech-centric, believe it or not. And it has to get to a point where it is no longer tech-centric, but it is usability-centric. It becomes a much easier onboarding when you don't have to mention blockchain, when you don't have to mention crypto, when you don't have to mention a wallet. These are baggage that comes inherited from an older system, which is centralized in many ways. And so from a municipal point of view, it's a heavy weight. They're not techies. They're not techie-minded. It's a heavy endeavor. Why would they think about it? So you have to, I think the next step would be to tool it in a way where it can adapt to non-trading approach. If you think of the population, right? And think of who is using it in terms of population age range. There's a tremendous amount of younger generation that will find much different purpose and utility out of it than older generation. The most impactful aspect of it hasn't yet been reached. We're still talking about it as a monetary, like it blows my mind when we think about it as, I love you, by the way, in Noak, you're like your episode with Noak. I love his approach to on money. And the idea to equate Bitcoin or any of these with money is just so bizarre. It's not because there's store of value that can be money. It's like, I love Noak's on money kind of a take on it. And I totally relate to that. I totally agree with that. So we like to think about it as money. You have to unstack what you already have stacked in your knowledge of what money and what currencies and what usage of it is. And eventually it will need an equalizer. We're not even there yet. So the idea to think of Bitcoin can be used for transactional is like ludicrous. Other networks are way more efficient at it. And so then the idea to use it as a store of value, okay, yeah, there's something in there, but then you can use others. So why does it have this value that it does? Other than, yes, it's the first that kind of came into the place. But when you think about it for real world usage beyond Michael Saylor's like MicroStrategy kind of approach to it, it actually, other networks are way more needed and more, can be more powerful to be used as means of organizational decentralized governance and management of assets rather than a store of value in that sense. So we're still we're still early. It's very hard to sell it to a municipality right now. There are, like, for example, in Toronto, there are the unorganized townships. I have cousins that go up hunting in Gogama, And I discovered that Gogama is an organized township, which means it's on voluntary basis. You say like, I want to be the mayor for X amount of time. I want to be a firefighter for X amount of time, and so forth. And I think those would probably be better cases to start with out west than out east, because their accessibility to technology and reliability to like grid, internet, and so forth is much higher. And yeah, I think that would be a good fertile grounds to kind of get into, and First Nation like res. They can, again, they have very different usage of it than non-res kind of approach because of legislation, legality, and so forth. But yeah, I think there's a lot of work to do before even thinking of onboarding. You know, when you want to onboard people, you better have the tooling and the accessibility for the functionality ready and in place. And it has to be beyond just a DAO. It has to be beyond a DAO usage. It has to, like you're talking, just like you sign into Google and you have your Google Suites and you have different things in the Google Suite sheets and Word and so forth. I think when we reach that point where you sign into your municipal portal and that would have in place all the things that municipal affairs would need to function, is when we start getting into the onboarding level.
Nice. So yeah, so there is a way to go yet, but you have that vision very clearly established.
It's unavoidable. It's like going back and saying, you know what, the digital phones or cellular phones or mobile phones, let's go back to the 80s and say like, okay, now let's repurpose rotary phones to check emails. Governance as we know it, as we know it today, is forever changed.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing this being put in place. I'm looking forward to seeing how, because my family has a farming background as well. The village political hierarchy is something that you need to be very involved in. It's not like in a city where you almost have the luxury of just being an introvert, right?
You can't not be involved in.
Yeah. Like you not being involved is you ceding the ability to not dictate, but contribute to how it develops.
Yep. And you're if you don't participate, you don't contribute, or you are not valuing your contribution. And besides, like, it's impossible to be in a village and not live. You gotta live it. And so as fluid and malleable the tech is, and it's phenomenal how fluid it is, once it starts getting used for these purposes, like birth certificates, land deeds, tokenization of farming output, then it becomes part of our lives, just like a cell phone is today. Just like, if you were to go back in time to 30 years and say like, in 30 years, nobody is gonna be walking around without these devices that you are going to do your banking, you're gonna watch videos on it, you're gonna have your entire family photo album. Just if you think of that, like 30 years ago or so, it would be, And so the advantage that we have today is AI, is the speed that it provides in terms of development, in terms of access. I can't imagine any development in realm of software without AI today. Like in one of the projects that I was working on is actually my assignment, the task of we're relying so much on AI. Everything is AI. Everybody is AI. We AI'd everything in that project at the time, from onboarding to troubleshooting to QA, into even like software architecture, code redundancy. Everything is AI'd. And I remember the founder, he's going like, "This is dangerous." I was like, I can see and he was like, can you take some time and have A/B scenarios of how we would function in case without it?
Yeah. I read a tweet yesterday. It says, of all the current participants in the Y Combinator Accelerator, right now, 95 of all the code has been written by AI.
Yes.
Like, we've adapted to take to this way of executing so quickly. And as someone who writes, I use AI, but it comes in after 3 drafts because I cannot trust AI to communicate my voice, flow, accuracy just yet. And I'm scared that there are programmers who feel comfortable with taking a backseat for 95% of this to be done by AI because I don't trust it at all. Like, if you see my conversations with my AI assistants, it's back and forth and I get upset, progressively upset because it's not meeting the expectation that I have in certain ways. Can you talk about the difference in how we see this? Like, where is this inspiration that founders are finding?
So if I go back to that project where I had to put together a assessment of non-AI driven organizational functioning, my best way to go about it, I'm like, imagine you are on a plane and now you gotta walk. And you still have to go from A to B. So let's think of you're going from Toronto to Sydney, Australia. Right now with AI, let's say it's a plane. No plane. Well, you got to use different tooling. Eventually, both are going to lead there. So in terms of trust, do you drive?
Yeah.
So how much?
Not here, in India.
In India. How much do you trust your car?
Quite a bit.
Until
it gives me reason not to.
And that's the same. So I use AI for many things. I only change my usage for it when when I get a red flag of, yes, we are going to have blind points. My latest usage of it is actually not techie. I took all my blood work and I fed it to AI and I feel good. And so I want to keep eating good and keep feeling kind of good in this body that I have. And so I fed it all of that and I was like, make me recipes. I want to use it for use that in kind of to maintain, relatively good shape health. And so it actually gave me recipes. And so from that perspective, you go like, if it was gonna go in your recipes, put rat poison in there, obviously that's gonna be a red flag. Obviously, I'm not gonna do that unless maybe and so, yeah, there'll be red flags. It's when we reach that flags that will change our behavior towards it.
And isn't this where the expertise is now more important than ever, right? Because this is where vibe coding scares me somewhat because I'm not a coder, but I think you would be great at vibe coding because you understand what the system's supposed to do. For like vibe writing, like for someone who doesn't write and following the AI, it could bring up those same sorts of issues, right? So rather than AI making you better at something you have no expertise in, it's the opposite. It's helping refine expertise, increase output, but you are still the brain.
In my current day job, we use C# a lot. And mainly everything is in C#. I like the process of seeing how AI structure code. Actually, if you actually use it enough, you can tell a human versus AI approach to the structure itself. And so you can flag things. Yeah, you're right. Like it can help you better hone your tooling, right? But at the same time, after a while, I go back to the car. How often do you wonder if your engine, unless you're really a car into cars, how often do you wonder if your engine is actually, it's burning or combusting to its maximum efficiency? Yeah, as long as it's getting you from A to B in a relatively safe and efficient way, you're gonna slack on how well the combustion mechanism is going, or how efficient it is going. And that is, as long as the AI is getting you from here to there, like from ideation into POC in a very fast way. There is something to AI that is kind of too handy in a sense, where you can vet it from different models or different AIs, which kind of can give a sense of extra added, maybe not security, but as a validation or extra added like checkpoints. That is, just think about it if it wasn't AI driven and you have to have your code audit done. That's one thing actually in like that I have brought is like code auditing. So as much as, yes, there is a blind trust in there or there is usability, but at the same time, if you're careful about it, you can use it to have different check mechanisms. With AGI knocking on our doors, literally, very, very, very soon, it's actually highly likely that it's going to put an end to app stores, Play stores, because it will be able to deploy an application that is specific to your need instantaneously. So if you have a need that can be resolved through a digital mean, instead of finding an application that can, so if you think of a business operation, in order to have a business operation, we have tooling. And those tooling, there are a set of software that do singular or like more just singular, but it'll do rigid blocky thing. And you have to connect them. So in order to modulate data from input into a process and to an output, a desired output, that process part about it is so multi-layered. You're going to need different tools. You're going to need different subscriptions. You're going to need different software development. You're going to need so forth in order to build to get that desired output. AGI is going to replace that entire block. AGI is going to change. I think AI as we have it today, blockchain as we have them today, is only, we are such a very, very early adoption of it. The scary element is going to be about not usage of AI. I think looking into in the future, we're going to look back and go like, oh, wow, like today you can build your own model that based on your own data to do a specific thing. Right now, you can say like, I'm using Mixtral to do this, and this is my data set, and this is the model that's coming out of it. And there, you still have clarity and certain degree of visibility on what are the elements that are in play to go from input to process to output. And the moment that process is changed into an AGIantic, if you want to say, and it is going to be like much more complex to get that visibility than what we have it today. And it's going to be more specific, more, so like software development is forever changed. I don't know the need for development in 2 years from now. I think we're going to value more ideation. We're going to value more a good clarity on input and output more than detailing of the process, because that process is going to be done in a non-human centric approach. And more, like you said, like maybe black boxy or like big boxy, if we want to say it, approach, which, yeah, it's going to be a lot murkier in a way if you want to tailor it to be able to access or have visibility on all the elements and the blocks and the pieces that are modeling that data to get to your output.
Nice. But since that is a little bit away in the future, though, you have actually told me about your use of AI right now for cultural continuity and how you are looking at how we can apply this to preserve language,
preserve ways of life. And we're already doing that, you know?
Yes.
And we don't need these extremely advanced tools for the computer to respond back in the sort of a way that we're looking right now with our application. So could you tell me a little bit about this? Firstly, who are you doing this with and what's the goal?
I discovered that project when I was at the Cardano governance convention. I met Angie of a New Zealander Maori background who actually used both blockchain and AI for the preservation of one part, like family trees and so forth. But the other part that fascinated me, and I relate to that, in many ways. I want to teach, for example, my kids. I would like them to learn and like the dialect of where my family's from. Unless you live there, you don't, and you're not gonna get that. You probably relate to it from your background, and so it's a daunting task, especially if you're not surrounded in that community, to teach kids like a dialect of your cultural heritage. They just won't have the mean to practice it, or they're just gonna look at it like, why are you talking to me like that? When I discovered that that group of Maoris in New Zealand, they teamed up with NVIDIA, and what they did is they trained an AI on their Maori dialect. And the hardest part that I found with teaching a dialect or a language or a cultural background to kids that don't grow there is to have their attention span and to have them focus enough on you in the world where we live in today. Devices, I cannot even compete with I don't know, dopamine secretion in a kid's brain versus like a computer or a device in that sense. Never mind trying to teach them a dialect that they're gonna look at you on here and they're never gonna use that here. So what they did down there, I thought it was fascinating because they used a technological innovation that new generation or kids or young generation are more likely to engage with it than an elder. I host, I do a workshop up at on Manitoulin Island at the Shigeen First Nation community. There's I think it's the only Ontario. I'm not sure if it's the only Canadian, but I'm pretty sure it's the only Ontario First Nation led film school. The founder is Dr. Shirley Chichu. Nano Debaski is the director, and they take youth at risk. And they're accredited by Brock University. It's not only First Nation centric. Anybody can attend and take their courses, and it's film school. And so I host up there an audio workshop. I was introduced to the community about a decade ago or so through a Toronto composer, Noak Lindqvist, who I was working with at the time. And he was the composer that basically used to go up there and do music workshop for them. And they reached out to me. They're like, we want to make it less composing, but more audio driven. I was like, sure. So we'll make it tooling, something that tactile the students can use. And again, in the last decade, accessibility to audio libraries went skyrocketing. So knowing how to use all that tooling, whether it is from a DAW, like a digital audio workstation perspective, or from libraries that you license and you use, it's good for filmmakers to understand that realm. So that's the audio workshop that I teach up there. And I worked on a film with Shirley Chichu, Moose River Crossing. That's about residential schools, and I actually learned a new side of Lebanon and colonialism and the French through my experience with her and learning about how colonialism tackled culture, how it tackled severing cultures, and why, and especially language. It's a huge thing if you want to cripple a culture, just cut the cultural tie through language and tradition. You made yourself a very much easier community or society to rule. I really value going to to WFI, like the Wingish Institute, and to Shigeen. And so when I was in Argentina and I saw that, I saw the Maori usage of them, I reached out to Dr. Chichu and to Nano, and I was like, there's this tooling. And then every time I go there, so the workshop is not taught remotely. I go up there, I stay up there for 2 weeks, sometimes longer at a time. And so there is this interaction, there is this from me personally, it's almost I go to a different village, bizarro world than Lebanon in my village, because there's so many commonalities. There's so many. It's the closeness of it. You see it, you live it, you live the severance, the cultural severance, but at the same time, you live the results of it. I reached out to them. I'm like, this is what these guys, these Maoris are doing. Would you be interested into using it? Because I noticed too, like in Lebanon, when my wife went first time to Lebanon, she was like, I thought they speak Arabic, and I'm like, well, they're not Arabs, like the culturally speaking. Yeah, they speak Arabic. I was like, we speak English. We're not English. We're Canadians. It's a cultural distinction. And then I was like, she's like, but the Lebanese dialect is like a hybrid of there's French words, there's English words, there's Arabic words, there's like Syriani word, or like Aramaic kind of a words that are, and I was like, it is. But when I was in Shigin, I noticed that wasn't there. They speak English, but at the same time, there are some words that go in and out of it. And so like that was my first my first kind of ding moment. I was like, I'm gonna reach out and see if they would be interested in it, because I'm really interested in it. I want to use it for my own kids eventually, cultural translator or learning mechanism. Don't use, like, it's not Duolingo. It's because this is be more relevant. It's taught by your own elders, by your cultural community. So I reached out to them, and then that was the other. I did not realize that Ojibwe, for example, every community have their own dialects, their own words, their own. So now I was like, there's literally, it's not only one, and you're teaching. It's like every community will have their own, will need their own, and so that's how it came into. I was like, oh my God, AI would be a very good conduit to cultural preservation, in a sense, where the input that is being taught is through elders, especially in communities that are verbally passed storytelling, past traditions, and not written. That would be an amazing medium, an amazing technology for that. Take elders, take storytelling, use AI as the capturing and modeling that is based solely on these elders, solely on these communities, solely on their stories, solely on their traditions. It gets rid of frustration. It gets rid of, like, when you're learning through an AI, it's not going to lose its temper. It's not going to, like, on you. It's not, if you think about it from an elder, if they want to sit and teach a community, they just think of all what they have to go through to do that. And at the same time, like, youth probably wouldn't have the attention span, like, to go through it. So that link that was severed by colonialism needs to a community that is in many ways, it's rediscovering it. What do you call it? Not habits, like celebratory,
the customs, the
costumes and traditions, and
Yeah.
so forth. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, that sounds. I like it when we take cutting edge tech and we combine it with these deep historical ties that we have as a society, right? Because it's so easy to just overlook this long 10,000 year plus journey of humanity, right? We've had technology the whole time, but we've not had technology like this very long. So how many languages do you think have been lost, traditions lost entirely? Like, we can kind of put an end to them being lost right now, right? By training models, preserving these cultures, preserving these attitudes, and just like taking the knowledge and this wisdom. Like, this is something that just blows my mind so often. Like, indigenous communities know what's up in the land around them. They're absolutely finely tuned to the weather patterns, the animals, the geographical challenges of surviving through there. And modern technology doesn't know everything. Far from it. We learn every day how little we know.
Yeah. And the more important part too, or a massive important part, which is, we know history not through the binoculars of who lived it. I don't know my ancestors' history through them. I know it through the generations that came after them. And that is a big change. If my kids will know my cultural attribution to their lives through me. The elders that are going to train these AIs for Ojibwe dialect and Ojibwe storytelling will not be around physically for the grandkids of the generation that they are training it for. But their stories and their cultural relevance will be there. We will be transmitting and sharing history, not from the binoculars of the winner, but from the point of view of those who lived it and from their experience. And that's a first. It's beyond documentation. It's real and not through somebody else that documented and wrote it.
Yeah, we're not translating and extrapolating ideas anymore, right? We're literally using a trove of information from which to communicate ideas that exist already. We're not making something afresh. And I think this is something that the generative AI crowd likes to point at, this use case for AI, right? Like, you can create something from this. Is it actually creating? Because it's trained on so much information, but this is training it on information to be communicated the way it was received.
Yes. Through the communication from the creators, from those who lived that time.
So would this still be called generative AI? Do we need
it's
a
not
new name to describe
generative
this?
by no means. It's preservative. It is representative and not like, I don't know the generative part. Like,
All we're doing is generating new phrases, but we're using all the old building blocks that have always
That
existed.
would be actually a cool thing to do, is to train an AI on that thing, that little story I shared earlier. Play me one note, love.
Or First Nations, like using the First Nations dialect to teach about new memes and new current things right now. Like, that's like wholly different applications of
life
this.
is lived, right?
Exactly, right?
Life is lived.
And like, language evolves. Of course, I think training on the elders' language, I think, is a valuable snapshot in time. But like, what blows my mind about AI is that this generative large language model is how encapsulating language is of who we are. And I think that this is opening up so many interesting parts for us to like preserve, communicate these big ideas. Because there's so many big ideas that we may not understand just yet. But what if what the elder says unearths some knowledge of some subtext in something we only have a written record of?
The reason why I don't know, it's the whole idea of being scared of AI because of that generative approach, or that it would replace, it's actually, I don't share that fear whatsoever. Simply, my full-time day job is in robotics and AI, and no matter how well you tune your servos and stepper motors and anything that you have within a robotic humanoid, if you want to take humanoids or even just arms, it will never, ever, can be close, but it will never move like a human, because our walk, our movements are expressions of who we are, and they don't have an expression. And so when you look at it from like physics and dynamics and motors and aspects, is when you go like, I'm not scared of it. It can only take as inputs what we feed it and give us outputs as we desire, or the highly likeliness of it playing that one note that would express love in a unique way to it without an input is none. So in a sense, I don't think it's fearful in that way. It's a tool. It's a tool. Like, does a screw fear or love a screwdriver? It will never get to that point, because there's no expression, there is no experience, it's the human that needs to do that. And same with it, until it gets to a point where that wouldn't be the case. But until now, like whether it is musically driven or graphic driven or arts driven or anything, I'm on the other side of that aspect of it. The older I get, the more I value being in a flow state with my musician friends rather than being in a studio recording. Because that's what attracted me in the first place with music is the expression, is the being in a moment where you actually don't have track or knowledge or even anything to do with space and time. You truly are in a state of flow that is addictive. My last few jams with my friends, I'm recording every one of them. Not to produce it, not to do anything out of it, but I want to train a model. Like I want to model it. I want to train an AI, like to learn just the recordings that we give it. And if one day I can license it to generate elevator music for somebody that needs elevator music, I'll do it in a heartbeat, because it's again, think of time, money, asset, ownership. If I am generating with my friends this asset that is going to generate me an income, and in that asset, I'm truly, truly putting into it what I love to do the most, being expressive, creative, in a flow moment and a flow period of time with my friends. And take that rather than me now, if you think about it from a non-AI driven process, usually you get with like, let's say you have a film or commercial, whatever it is that you want to work on. The last documentary I worked on with a friend of mine, we get together and we bounce ideas and so forth. But then comes the tedious moment, which is you're capturing creativity and expression. And now you have to break it down to become a product, to become something that you can then take and license, sell, so you can make money out of it. That middle side of it is my least favorite part, but it is important, because everything in your life, in our lives, is all about being able to capture the output of a creative endeavor and actually make something with it. Ideation is amazing. Ideas are amazing. Execution of ideas are more valuable in that sense. Some people can get a flow state from structuring tracks, sitting and like EQing and producing tracks to get something out, which is amazing. Go ahead and do it. But if you don't relate to it, and you would need another means to do that. So if you were to tell me you and your friends can hang out a few times a week and just jam and come out with a very unique settings where you are expressive, you're in a flow state and you get out of it what you want to get out of it, feed that into an AI. And if somebody wants a commercial to which you need to lock in real time, but at that point you are creating an asset and you're trading your knowledge, your expression to create an asset, and you have a middleware that takes that asset that you have created, which is 4-hour jam, 3-hour jam, whatever it is, and make a commercial out of it and license that. You just remove the most tedious part about it, because simply, and in this case, I'm only saying that in this case, in my experience. And I do value that. I do value the usage of AI that can take what I have created in a flow state, an expressive way, and make a commercial that probably didn't want to do in the first. Nobody aspires to go like, man, I want to make the best commercial ever. It's the other way around. It's like, I want to be able to express my life in a song. Yes, 100%. But if you were to take it musically and you need to write a piece that is not written solely for that, but it is something that you have to do to earn a living, I'll take the AI anytime. I don't need to spend hard minutes of my life to create a commercial track. But if I can split it in a split of a second, and I'm getting my fair share of contribution to the rights of me having that with my friends, or the initial input that was used for that, then I'll do it in a heartbeat. I'm actually working towards it. I'm planning to have that as a service. Imagine the life of a music supervisor role where you have to sit and go through, I don't know how many libraries of listening to them. That would fit, that would not. Rather than, I like this artist. Take this artist's repertoire, make me 10-second cue for a film or 2-minute song or whatever it is, because the intention of it is not expression. It's not creativity. The intention of that need is solely, the sole purpose of it is commercial. You just happen to have a brand and you need audio behind it, or you need a song behind it. And so that brand is not necessarily reflective of the expression of that artist. So if you can replace the middleman, a lot of lives can get a lot easier. If you let the artist be an artist and let them create and let them, or live what they love to do the most, and take a brand and let them extract from that what they love to do the most, then it's a win-win. If one is ripping the other, that is when it becomes problematic. If you have an AI that is taking songs to which the artist is not getting their share of or without their knowledge, then it's theft at that point. And so that scenario is obviously out of the window. Use it to empower your life.
So we started with music, and we're all the way back around, back in the music as well.
Music drives my life in many ways.
And that was kind of why I wanted you on, because there's also a lot of music things that you've been working on as well. But I think that goes beyond the scope of this episode. Because I'll have to bring you on again to talk about Noom, to talk about artist rights, to talk about the brokenness of the music industry. If you like this, folks, let us know that you want a part 2 with Roger, because we will do that. We will dedicate the whole thing to music, because I just found Roger's life story, it was so interesting from the perspective of technology that I did not want to direct the flow into this just yet. Because I found someone from our neck of the woods, effectively, not from the West, this relationship with technology is so vastly different to what we're used to. So I just felt that there was so much inspiration to be had over there. But yeah, Roger, this has been an absolute dream to have you over here.
Likewise. I love our conversation outside of here, but this is amazing. This is
this is fantastic. So Roger, I think this is now the time for you to plug your activities. Could you please tell the folks at home, firstly, about your band? Where can, your SoundCloud, you need to add that to your list of stuff as well that you're going to share.
I don't have much of a digital I don't have a Facebook. I have my Beehive staking pool on Twitter, and that's about it. I have a LinkedIn that I completely ignore. But I'm not a fan of, I don't have, if anybody likes this, I would rather them commenting on you rather than what I, by no means I'm an active online whatsoever, which is...
the tragedy of those who build, right? You have just no time to talk about what you're building. You just focus on building. But that's cool. I'll include all of Roger's links over here. Thank you so much for coming over here, joining me in the studio. So this is Marv and Roger signing off from... This is April. No one knows what the weather is like. I haven't... Should I just stop talking about the weather in my outros?
The weather is as sporadic as charts of crypto these days.
Absolutely. So this is Marv. This is Roger. Thank you folks for listening in. Really looking forward to seeing you on the next one. You take care. Bye-bye. Thanks so much for listening. Don't forget to rate the episode if you're on Spotify or Apple, and do share it with the folks who enjoy the ideas being discussed here. As mentioned earlier in the episode, this podcast will be on hiatus for a little bit, but the updates will not stop. Follow us on socials, and don't forget to sign up to my newsletter at www.marvinpaul.com. That's Marvin with a Y instead of an I. Take care and see you on the next one. Bye-bye.